Okay, let's start with Geeta Dhyanam. O Bhagavad Gita, by which Arjuna was illumined by Lord Krishna himself, and which was composed of 18 chapters from within the Mahabharata by the ancient sage Vyasa. O Divine Mother, destroyer of rebirth, who showers the nectar of oneness upon us. O Bhagavad Gita, my affectionate mother, on thee I meditate. All the Upanishads are the cows. The milker is the cowherd boy, Krishna. Arjuna is the calf, and people of purified intellect are the drinkers. The milk is the supreme nectar of the Gita. My salutations to the Lord, who is the source of supreme bliss, whose grace makes the mute eloquent and the crippled cross mountains. Hari Om Tat Sat. Okay. So we've explored knowledge, action, will, intellect, how they all fit together. So really, once again, we've covered yoga psychology, pretty much the entirety of the human experience and how it is. All right, we'll see you in a little bit now. Have a good trip. So we pick up from here on discussion of duty. Discussion of duty. The more on the human experience and duty, and how it is that our duty is related to the nature of this person, and also pointing from there to freedom, and what's the way of freedom. So we pick up on shloka 40, and here's the and this will go against just about everything we think. Number 40, there is no one on earth or among the gods of heaven, the devas, who is beyond the three qualities of nature. And Swamiji adds a commentary. We'll read the first couple of paragraphs. He says, unfortunately, the 40th shloka says there's no one on earth or even in heaven, including the gods, who are free from these three gunas. At first, that sounds a little discouraging, but it doesn't have to be. The three gunas are always there. We can't avoid them. In fact, the moment we rise above the three gunas, we become totally unfit for anything in this world, and we might as well leave. Our job is over, the main switch is off, no impetus remains. Everything here, and this is discussion in the field and the knower of the field, etc. Everything here, where is the start of things, Hari? Where do things start? Coming out from the capital S self, what is the first thing?
The first thing?
You know it. No. What is the first thing, the first object coming out from the self? What is the first object? What is the first sheath made of?
Oh, the food.
The inner coming out from the inside.
So it's the Ananda, the bliss.
No. What is it made of?
It's made of the ignorance.
Ignorance. Ignorance is the first thing. When we're experiencing things. They're all constructed of something. They're all constructed of something. From the thoughts out. From the thoughts out. We have an inner world, which is our world of desires and reflections and thoughts and feelings, yes? Okay. And we have an outer world that we're relating to, which is the objects and experiences, yes? But really, there's no difference between the inner world and the outer world. They're both made of the same stuff. Yes? So, the thoughts, and in fact, here's the beauty. 100 years ago, modern science got it. What are things made of? Deeper. Things are made of thoughts. That's the great discovery of quantum physics. Waves. Waves. And the first waves are thought. And the very first wave of the human experience is the feeling of being separate, alone, and incomplete. Avidya, ignorance. That's the first thing that we experience. When you're in meditation, have you ever noticed that the first experience is that you're separate again? It's that you've lost something, that you're coming out of something profound. Have you had that experience? Yeah, that's the first experience. What's it made of? Of the three gunas, what is the primary nature of that avidya? It's logical. What is the primary ingredient? Of the three gunas, rajas, tamas, sattva, it's primarily tamas, yes? You see? Yeah. It's something that is if has been placed over the self, capital S self, in order to have this world experience. In order to project out. So, on first arising from the deepest state of consciousness, one encounters the gunas. You can't have an experience without them. So what is the person made of? The person is made of? The gunas. So every person, and this has been the discussion here since we started with the discussion of the field and the knower of the field. So this is the third portion. Remember the three portions of the Gita. The first six, the first six, thou, you. The next six, that, me, and the next six is the connection between the two. So, relationship between that and thou. So, spirit, but coming out gunas. From the first discussion of the field and the knower of the field, this is where, so we're in the same place, really. But what's being shared today is that no person is free of the gunas. There's there's an idea that freedom means being free of the things that will disturb you. Yeah, but it's the thoughts that are disturbing you. Any disturbance is coming from within the inner person. Yeah? Yeah. So it's not the thing that happens that disturbs, it's the anger that arises that disturbs. Right? It's not what someone says to you that disturbs, it's what you take it to mean that disturbs.
What about something like physical pain?
How does it have to be disturbing? So the physical pain is where?
In the body.
And you are? Not the body, not the body. So, and does the pain last forever? Is it who you are?
No.
No, it comes in it. This too shall pass. So if you know that and you're not identified with the body, then what's the thing about the pain? How does it disturb you? So the disturbances are in the mind. And pain itself is also in the mind. And that's not minimizing it, it's just saying the fact of it. It's not actually a physical thing, it's a mental thing related to a physical experience. But in the meditative state, pain, when one is in meditation, pain, experience of pain? No. So it doesn't exist at that level, it only exists in the field. And everything is existing in the field. Okay.
But what if it hinders you from being a better karma yogi?
Who is the? It's a funny thing, but who is the karma yogi again?
So the little I and the real.
The person. And the person practices karma yoga in order to
help out.
To be free of the identification as the little I. So what's being shared here, actually, Bhagavad Gita is teaching on freedom. Ultimately, it's teaching of how to live in a way that one becomes free. And the bondage is identification with what we're not, and lack of identification with what we are. That's the bondage. It's not what's happening to the person that's binding us. It's as if we're bound to the person. Because what we are is not the person. I'm going to share, we get these daily quotes from Ananda ashram, which is India. It's Swami Rama. Have you heard of Swami Rama? Swami Rama was one of the great seers and bhakti, such a pure bhakti, and therefore also jnana. Ram devotee. That's why he was given the name Rama. And in some circles, he's quite famous because he's so pure and direct. And so he left the body late 20th century, or a little earlier actually, around the time Swami Shivananda did. But okay, just 1 second, we're looking for this quote. That's why he was given the name Rama. Oh, come on. We don't want you right now. Because he's so... We didn't want live. Okay, here we go. That's freaky. Thank God it has an offset. But now it'll be in a little bit of a loop for a minute. Okay.
Just don't go back again.
Yeah, we're going to turn it off right after this. So here's the quote from Swami Ramdas, Ramdas, not Rama. Swami Ramdas. You, as an individual actor, apart from the universal truth and spirit, are utterly imaginary. You and all the rest do actions by the supreme will and power of the Lord. One more time. You, as an individual actor, apart from the universal truth and spirit, are utterly imaginary. You and all the rest do actions by the supreme will and power of the Lord. And this is something we've been exploring over the last couple of weeks, right? Is who's acting here? So there's not actually an individual. Ultimately, this is the teaching, and it's actually our experience as well. Is all the things that we thought we were doing as an individual are being done by the universal. There's still the feeling of being an individual, and there's still the ability to make choices as a seeming individual. Willpower is there. It's very difficult to understand. The mind can't quite grok it, but it can figure out this is the truth, though. It can determine that this is what it is. So, and here, starting this discussion of freedom, or coming back to this discussion of freedom, Lord Krishna says first that our idea of freedom, which is everything will come into alignment at some point and stay there, is a false notion. It won't happen that way. Even the gods are subject to the gunas, because the gods are also the whats.
The supervisors.
Yeah, but they are also personages. We're reminded the meaning of the word person. Person comes from the Greek personae. Personae is back in the ancient times with Greek civilization, they have the plays, and they had these large amphitheaters, and they had sound figured out, but you can't really fix the vision thing. In other words, if you're 40 rows back, it's hard to see, although you can hear because of the design. So the characters all wore these big masks. They were like body size, so that you could see them. That's the personae. So the person is what we get ourselves confused with. And we're identified with the person, although amazingly, and so the gods also, he's saying, persons. Persons. The astral beings, persons. These are all masks that are being worn. Characters, yeah. Characters on the stage, on the beautiful stage of life. Nothing wrong. Nothing wrong. The only thing that smacks of being wrong is when we suffer, and that we want to be free of, and there's help, thank God.
But they know they're playing the role, right? They're not lost in it.
Actually, there would be discussion on that. They're so wrapped up in the role itself that it said that actually discernment is a uniquely human quality. Because this is a middle birth. We experience both. The demonic, as it were, is experiencing all of the darkness. The devas, as it were, experiencing all of the light. So they've done only good for so long, the persons, that finally they're the sun god or the god of the wind or whatever. And we just started Kena Upanishad, and did you notice that when we read it, that there's a story in it about the gods not knowing who they were?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Vayu comes upon the straw. Brahman comes and says, here, because they're all proud of themselves, what they did. Yeah. So the stories, the lore as well, speak to that same point. Human birth, so it's said. And here in the commentary, Swamiji says the same thing. So, but first is the point that all of the persons, whether they're gods or demons or humans, whatever, are not free from the gunas. That the gunas are the nature of nature is what the person is made of. And then we come here, and caste system is discussed, but not in the way we normally would think. Indeed, Arjuna, the qualities in one's own nature determine the appropriate role and duties for each person, whether scholar or priest, Brahmin, leader or warrior, Kshatriya, tradesperson, Vaishya, or laborer, Sudra. And then he discusses the four. Swamiji adds some commentary that's helpful. He says, now we come to the fourfold castes and their duties. Hindu tradition divides people into four groups or castes, which are the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras. Brahmins are the priests and teachers, Kshatriyas the rulers and warriors. Vaishyas are the business people, and Sudras the working class. Unfortunately, these four castes gradually came down to a level where a Brahmin's child is called a Brahmin, a Vaishya's child a Vaishya, and so on. But these four categories are supposed to be based on people's temperaments. And in that way, the caste system, even though it's not called that, actually exists everywhere. Because everyone will naturally engage in activities related to their temperaments. And so Krishna covers the four, but that's really the spirit of it. Not to label, but just the society is made up of the gunas, but the society is also made up of the characters, the personages who are playing their roles. And as we see right now in this time, the society does not function if all of the roles aren't played. Supply chains break down and everything else happens if they're not played. And we're so objectified in this time. We're so convinced that our happiness relates to what we do, instead of finding who we are and relating to who we really are. We're so convinced that everybody in this age, this anxiety, this great anxiety, Kali Yuga is called the time of quarrels. So you see the quarreling in the mind, the argumentary nature in the mind that's become so prevalent, and then it gets spoken out, and so everybody's uncomfortable. All of the persons are uncomfortable, believing that the comfort will come in doing something different, in getting in a van and driving around the country, or right? I mean, nothing against any of this, but how that predominates is not actually the thing we're doing that's our issue, though. But the roles have to be played. And so the roles are best played by those persons who have traits, nature, that supports the role. But we think, whatever, fill in the blank, money will do it, or power will do it, or getting away from everything will do it. So in this time, we're a bit more than a bit stuck. So Krishna does say this, speaking of the four, and we can close after this for the morning. He says, by nature, the priest or teacher is inclined towards serenity, self-control, self-discipline, purity, and forgiveness, as well as virtuous behavior and learning, self-realization, and faith in the eternal. So what's the predominant guna? Sattva. Which for the person, just through the process of evolution, will eventually come. Through the process of evolution, tamas will not satisfy, and one will eventually be forced by the universe to take on more of the rajasic quality, right? And doing will not satisfy, but now one has more of the rajasic quality, and so we'll have that desire to know and to do what will satisfy, which will naturally lead one to someone who's satisfied. And the questions will be asked, and sattva will be cultivated naturally. And there we go. And so that one, through Shankaracharya says 100 billion well-lived births. So you've been around for a while. We'll come to the place where those questions can be answered. We'll ask the questions. And that's what Krishna here is calling the Brahman. Actually, Brahmana, the knower of Brahman, the knower of truth, or one who's fit to be. But that doesn't actually mean that only a Brahmana can be free. And Krishna addresses that, and that's key. It just means that the person is like this. And we know of many who have the personality, but are still very much bound up and still very much involved in binding thoughts and desires and all of this. So Rajas is still there, Tamas is still there. So we get to that, but he's just describing the natures. The leader or warrior, Kshatriya, is naturally inclined to courage, vigor, firmness of mind, resourcefulness, generosity, leadership, and the resolve not to flee, but to persevere in the midst of battle. So you could say Rajas, but also there's a dharmic element to that. So Rajas, but a level of purification. And then the other two. The tradespersons naturally inclined towards farming, dairying, and other business trades, and working people by nature inclined towards service. So still Rajas. Yeah? Perhaps a little bit less dharmic, but still. And then the last is the Sudra, which is $44? No, we go directly from 44. So we don't talk about Sudra. Okay, and then a little bit of commentary from Swamiji. He says, those who can only do physical labor and are incapable of setting up callings of their own are Sudras. Those employed as paid lower subordinates to others are Sudras. They depend on others for their livelihood. Clerks who just do whatever they're asked to do and get the pay can be categorized as Sudras, at least at that time. This one can get very sticky, and there really wants to be the ability to keep relating to it as a person that's being discussed, not the self. And we see Western society in the same way. It's the same way. Yes? Yeah. So he says, but you can't classify everybody who gets paid as a Sudra. A school teacher with right mental attitude is a Brahmin, a government officer is a Kshatriya, people who sell their labor in independence, and those who take bribes and tips are all Sudras. You see these four types of people in all societies, not just in India or the East. Only there they were recognized and classified this way. We also, in the West, have Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaisyas, and Sudras in America. Over the globe, you see them. And he says, one's temperament is not simply inherited. If it were, then a lawyer's child should be always a lawyer, a judge's child a judge, a doctor's child a doctor. It's not by birth, but by qualification. However, society, especially today, tends to qualify people by birth, not by qualification, or judge by birth, or judge by the family, or judge by the place that they came from, etc., etc. And it's not that. And it's neither good nor bad. It's neither better nor worse. All of these judgmental notions are craziness. There's actually no higher or lower here. There's only pure soul here. There's only the divine here. So it can get cut and does get covered up in different ways. But it's what is here. In the mental realm, because of the mind being objectified, we're constantly involved in these ideas of what's better and what's worse, and applying those notions outside. But that's not in this teaching. Those concepts that we apply are not in this teaching. That's why Swamiji is taking time with the commentary to try to clarify it. That this isn't what we think is not what's intended here. It's these persons come in all different shapes and sizes and all different capabilities, but all of them are expressions of the same divinity. And each of them have the opportunity to be free here. And Swami Shivananda would say, in this very birth. And that's where we move to now. I'll just read the next, and then we can see if we have any comments or thoughts. Here's where Lord Krishna goes from this. Shloka 45. You can attain perfection by devoting yourself to the work that comes most naturally. I will explain how. So that's the beginning or transition into teaching of regardless of the gunas that we're subject to, regardless of the person, that still freedom is your true nature and that it's possible to be free. Perfected means perfected in knowing that you're not this person. That's the one perfection, because you're perfect already. Okay. Questions, comments?
It still
Please.
would mean something like slavery, right? Like on a relative perspective, that was really bad. And if you're in a situation where you're seeing these things, you still would take the appropriate, I guess, duty actions to improve the relative
Yes.
as well, right?
Yes, absolutely. And you know what's amazing with what Lord Krishna says here in 45, that regardless of your lot in life, regardless of where you've been placed in this society, that freedom is possible for you. I want to watch, we haven't watched it for a year or so. There's a movie that we have on DVD. It's a little long, so it might have to be 2 nights, but movie night soon. Story of a slave whose family was killed in Africa, who was taken into bondage, who became a great saint. And the story of this is, and she accepted her lot, but in one way, she accepted that she was placed in that position, but she didn't bow down to it. She found the divinity within. And so she didn't refuse to serve in that way, but she found who she is and served in a much greater capacity. And it's a beautiful story. It starts with a B.
I think I've seen the DVD.
Is it?
At least when I was here, I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, we have. Okay, we should watch it. Maybe we can start it on Tuesday?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Because someone that would say lowest class Sudra, right?
Yeah.
Slave. And in that time, there was really the attitude that the slave was lesser within society, and that people deserve to be treated in a way like that. And that attitude still exists within some of us, because within this nature, every nature is here. So every idea, every thought is here. Oh. Okay. Anything else? Particular.
Wow, I was just thinking to myself, how many times I've been guilty of asking people, what do you do?
Hi.
What do you do in life? And then
Yeah.
most people answer, and then you come across a spiritual person a lot of times, and they'll look at you like, why did you just ask me that? Like, and then if they do answer, they'll go into a whole different spiel.
Yeah. And the whole, we call that chit chat.
Yeah.
Because it tends to lead and bring out the judgmental tendencies,
Right.
which we're not wanting to forget about them, the judgmental tendencies. We're wanting to transcend them. It's not about burying them, but it's really about going beyond them.
To me, it's always like, maybe that's what I would want to do.
I know, that's the thing that bedevils us, Kartikeya. It's that. It's this persistent notion of being separate and then unhappy. So happiness is somewhere other than where I am. So what could I do to be happy? Where could I be to be happy? Who could I be with to be happy? And the teaching here that's being shared is that's not it. Be who you are, even at the personage level. Be who you are. It's fine. Be who you are, and devote what you do. Devote who you are to that highest. That's the path of freedom.
So what was the floating? What was it the movie we watched? The floating priest.
The flying priest, Saint Joseph of Cupertino.
Cupertino, yeah. That's a prime example.
Yeah. That movie also is a beautiful example of, again, the same. Yeah. Because, society didn't value him.
Right.
Society didn't value him because his lot was he was given a body and mind that really weren't capable of much achievement in a worldly sense.
Yeah.
But he demonstrated the real achievement.
Right.
So, the flying saint. Real, true story. Okay, we'll close with final prayer in RT 174. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandim Pushtivardhanam Orvairukhameva Bandhanan Mritor Mokshiyamamritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandim Pushtivardhanam Orvairukhameva Bandhanan Mritor Mokshiyamamritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandim Pushtivardhanam Orvairukhameva Bandhanan Mritor Mokshiyamamritat Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Shantu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashanto Makashi Dukhapat Bhave Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotir Gamaya Mritor Ma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamida Purnamidam Purnamudashate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. O adorable Lord of mercy and love, salutations and prostrations unto thee. Thou art omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient. Thou art Satchidananda. Thou art existence, knowledge, and bliss absolute. Thou art the indweller of all beings. Grant us an understanding heart, equal vision, balanced mind, faith, devotion, and wisdom. Grant us inner spiritual strength to resist temptation and to control the mind. Free us from egoism, lust, anger, greed, hatred, and jealousy. Fill our hearts with divine virtues. Let us behold thee in all these names and forms. Let us serve thee in all these names and forms. Let us ever remember thee. Let us ever sing thy glories. Let thy name be ever on our lips. Let us abide in thee forever and ever. On below Satguru Shivananda Maharaj Ki, and for all the saints and sages of all the traditions. Okay, let's rise for our